Be live with that episode 71. Welcome for being nice and early, everybody. Just a few seconds longer. And I believe we're live. So if you give me 30 seconds. It's 1900 and welcome everybody to the Empower Hours show this evening with myself, Sukhi, Wahiwala, your host, and our brilliant guest, which I shall introduce very shortly. This program is sponsored by Salam Radio, which is a radio station here in my little town of Peterborough. We have been blessed to be delivering this particular program via the internet and through to our radio listeners as well. The Inspired Tribe and also myself, Sukhi Wahiwala, thank you all very much. On behalf of myself, Sukhi Wahiwala, thank you all very much for being here today on the Empower Hours show, episode 71. 71. We're coming to the end of 2020 as well. And this evening we have a treat, a really wonderfully humane and talented individual, which I've got on this evening. We've been tracking her down for months and we managed to get her into the diary. Her name is Treena Maun. Now, if I share just a little bit of a story before we say hello properly to yourself formally, Treena. Treena and myself, we go back quite some years now. We've worked together on many projects, and I'm very, very glad and proud to call her one of my sisters. I know she'll look younger, but you know, I am a little bit younger, I'm afraid, in this particular context. But Treena Maun, what a wonderful, wonderful entity and energy. Treena has been an individual who has fought through so many obstacles in life, but has always seen the positives in the world. She's a dyslexic individual who also organized the Army's library, of all places, showing you can get past through any barrier. She's an individual whose love of dogs and connections with the animal kingdom have taken her to be she's way on the other side of 300 plus Crufts awards with dog breeding, best of kinds, and we'll talk about that a bit later. She's an individual who's super studied, somebody who's gone out of her way to study multiple different, you could say, modalities of study, whether it's eccentrically seen as something that's tangible or non-tangible, but an individual who's amalgamated all this to create the Maun method, and she today is known as the Phobia Lady. Within a very short period of time, she removes and withholds any and reframes any kind of phobias that you have, and we'll be sharing that a bit later. But she's also an individual who's a cordon bleu qualified chef through the 70s. And somebody who's ran her own business in catering for 20 years and catered for royalty, such as Charles and many of the people, Prince Charles, that is. I am wholeheartedly so proud to welcome Treena Maun, the Phobia Lady, to the Empower Power show. Welcome, Treena.
It's lovely to be here, Sukhi, and thank you for inviting me.
It's a sincere pleasure. And we're going to spend an hour together and we're going to take a little journey together and share for all of our audience and listeners who understand that phobias can be quite debilitating, to say the least. But before we get there, Treena, we're going to dive straight into it. No airs, no graces. Where are you from?
Well, I'm a bit of a mixed up kid. I was born in Cornwall and then I moved to Devon and then spent some time in Lavenham and in Suffolk, Woodbridge, several villages in Suffolk, and then I went to school in Rutland, and then I moved to Germany, and I lived in Singapore. I've lived in London. I've lived in just outside Dublin, and I've come back to this country, and I've lived in a little village called Princess Risborough, and then went to another little village called Craswell, which is in Herefordshire. And now I'm living up in Lincoln.
Lincoln now. Wow, what a coveted journey. Now, a lot of our guests that we've had in the past who have been blessed with early travels have said there's been kind of positives and negatives with both traveling and settling or not settling. For example, one of the key things would have been with travel would be latching onto great friends or making deep bonded relationships. Now, in your journey, you said something just a moment ago that you also went to boarding school in Rutland.
Yes.
How did you find your childhood? I mean, was it just an amazing part of your life?
It was an interesting childhood. As I said, I was born in Cornwall, which I love going back to. I went to boarding school when I was 9. I think it helped me become much more independent. I was an only child, so to meet other people, I had to go out and chat to other kids of all different ages. And with schools, with boarding school, that does make it, you do talk to people at school because you have your own dormitory, so you have a group of friends there, and you have a group of friends that are in your year, and you're with them 24/7 for 7 days a week.
That makes such a tremendous difference, because now I've spoken to some people who the travel has been a detriment to their upbringing. They've not managed to make great deep friends. But the difference here, from what I'm hearing, Treena, is that you've been out looking for friendship. So you've actually kind of like, one of my sayings is, I always find what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I think living in Germany and Singapore broadened my outlook tremendously. Seeing other cultures, living in the heat. I mean, I was able to do one of my bucket lists when I was 15. I always wanted to go for a swim on Christmas Day.
Well, that's coming up this week.
And I was able to do that in Singapore.
Yes, because obviously the weather doesn't really cool down there, does it?
Yes, that's right. It's lovely and warm. So and I
nice
I love meeting people.
Yeah, what a wonderful outlook and a way to see the world as well. So a question to yourself. I mean, you said you were one of let's say one of one, weren't you? You were an only child, and you went quite early to boarding school. Now, a question that arises for myself: there's an extensive amount of travel there by an average person like myself, who basically principally born and bred in Peterborough, and didn't really live anywhere else besides within business, like in hotels, etc. So how was childhood for you, in the sense of, have you got any memories that really...
I think one of my earliest memories is I'm 6 years old, and I'm with my grandmother, and she's taking me to a dog show.
Oh, wow.
And sideline, she forgot to take milk with her for her tea, because she always had milk. She didn't have milk in her tea, and of course I did, being a child. And from that day, I've always drunk my tea black. But anyway, going back to what you really asked me, was there was this dog show, and she put me into a junior handling class, and I won it with one of her Griffons.
Oh, well done. And that really makes a lot of sense there, Treena. So that explains this eternal love for dogs specifically, and how you were introduced. So was your grandmother really influential in your life?
Yes, she was. I actually have her affix. When you breed dogs, you have your own kennel name. And my kennel name, also known as an affix, is Bower Hinton. And that was her.
Bower Hinton.
Yeah. And that was her affix. So I was able to have that affix.
Aha. So just help me understand a few things there. Yes. You've in essence taken that name, and because she was into dogs as well.
Yes.
And you've followed it through. So you're really kind of taking it to probably third generation.
Yes.
In essence. That's beautiful to hear. So Bower Hinton, did you say?
And that comes from a little village in Devon called Bower Hinton, is where she lived at the time.
Aha. So that's the kind of like the dog school name, in essence.
Yeah. So all my dogs started their names like Bower Hinton, and then the name of the dog, which is Bare Necessity, for instance.
Beautiful. So a lot of our audience won't know me, and know you. This is why we're bringing you to the audience themselves. Now, you've also been with that principle, you've been what we classify as a top breeder. Now, a top breeder in particular, could you just talk a little bit about your Norwegian elk hounds, which
Yes.
is a breed of dog, isn't it?
It is, yes. They come from Norway, as it says, and they're a hunting breed, and they hunt elk. They do a very good job in this country. There's no elk here now.
I was going to say, they do a great job here, then, aren't they? Yes, they're doing well. There's no more elk left.
And they're a square dog with pricked ears and a tight curled tail and a coat that's about 2 inches long, and it's silver and black.
Silver and black. So when I see them, because a very mutual friend of ours, his name is Gary, he's had some of your dogs, and he's aware of the dogs. Now, by meeting the dogs, they're very, very beautiful, very placid, but also the nature of the dog, if I'm correct, they're very, they remind me of a Nikita, very quiet if necessary, and then take it to the next level. That's probably not like what they're like, but can you give me some antics of what type of dog they are?
A Nikita is a fighting dog. They took them into war, so they're a fighting dog. Whereas an elk hound is a hunting dog and lived with the family and for highly prized. And they are fantastic with children. They really are. For instance, Bear, I've just mentioned him. He sometimes goes to stays with a friend of mine when I'm going abroad. And she has grandchildren. In this particular time, she had a very young grandchild who couldn't even put his head up. So very young.
Very young,
and
under 3 months.
Put this child on the sofa, and Bear, who normally just jumps on the sofa, very quietly put each paw onto the sofa and curled up, protect the child.
Wow.
Now, Bear has not been brought up with children. So that's a dog doesn't know children. They are renowned for being wonderful with children.
So it's kind of like pure instinct, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very, very good with young.
And that, I'd assume, would mean they're very good young with their own young as well, right? Oh,
yes, they are. Absolutely. They make great mothers. Yeah, they're very good mothers.
Hopefully the females.
Yeah. Some dads like puppies. Aslan, one of mine, he doesn't like puppies at all. He much prefers when he can play with them. He's just scared of puppies.
Oh, bless. A bit older, so they've got to be bigger.
Yes.
Wonderful. So as a dog themselves, and you've got into breeding quite early, so you're revered as one of the best breeders in class in the UK.
I've won best breeder for 8 years running.
Very, very beautiful. And this is part of the reason why, audience, if you're listening, why it was such a hard slog trying to get her onto the shows, because every time we seem to have got a date, it seemed to have coordinated with another show. Treena, I want to share, 300 plus awards. That is some accolade.
Yeah.
Are you proud? You must be so proud.
Yes, I am. But often although I've bred these dogs, I don't own them. And it's when they do well, I'm really proud. It's when other people have taken my dogs to the top of the profession of dog showing. That's when I get really proud of seeing other people handling my breeding.
So them themselves. So literally the pride comes from when you're actually seeing other people follow through on the excellence and the love with their own dogs as well. Wonderful. Treena, that's a beautiful start of your background of your dogs, etc. It comes to a certain time within this interview. Now, today, I understand we're going to be talking a lot about phobia and how people misinterpret phobia in the first place, where they perceive it as a weakness. But before we get there, there's usually a significant, what we classify as a defining moment in life, when something changes, something creates an inner light switch, a bulb moment to switch on the lights. And when we realize that life actually isn't this muddle, and it's real, and it's actually being there, the word I'm looking for is in the current presence.
Yes, that was in the 70s. As you've already said, I'm dyslexic, but I didn't know I was dyslexic. It wasn't known about then. And I went to the Cordon Bleu school, and I remember on the first day we were told all that we were going to be doing, and she said at the end of it there is going to be an exam, and I just died. I just thought, oh, this is just awful. I can't do this. And so I went up to the teacher and I said, look, it's an exam on it, and I can't put pen to paper. And she said, leave it with me and I'll get back to you. And she got back to me literally the next day. And she said, we'll give you a secretary. We'll put you in a separate room and we'll give you a secretary and you can tell the secretary what to write.
Oh my goodness.
For that time, that was so forward looking, incredible, absolutely incredible. And
that's tremendous. I mean, as a dyslexic individuals, it wasn't about the intellect and not understanding it, but it was actually, as we all know in this current day, it's actually about just thinking differently. Yes. And maybe not being able to articulate something in a particular way or ingest it in the same normal way. Now, we all know Alfred Korzybski, Science and Sanity. He clearly says that we ourselves, we're nothing more, nothing less than meaning-making machines. So we make meaning on our own terms. So the way I see something is absolutely unique compared to what you do. And dyslexia is nothing more, nothing less than just a different way of inputting data, isn't it?
Absolutely. And one of the things I found most frustrating as a child when I was at school, I was thought to be thick and I couldn't prove that I wasn't.
Wow.
Because I couldn't write it down. I mean, my spelling was atrocious. My writing was atrocious. So the poor teacher had the most terrible job trying to read what I'd written.
Now, I have to tell you a little secret there. That is just so beautifully articulated in the sense of that you couldn't prove that you were not, I suppose you said you just, quote unquote, thick, quote unquote, stupid, which is not relevant, not the case, but not as bright academically as you could, because you couldn't prove it, because you couldn't write it out in the first place. That was where the lock was. Yeah. Wow, that is very deep. So if anybody out there is thinking or feeling in a similar way, where somehow one becomes more mischievous as a child, as an adult, where we do things where it's a bit what we classify as not the norm. It's something that we do differently to other friends, other people and colleagues and work colleagues even, where the world, your input stage is different, as in how you understand it. I would strongly, looking at Treena and everybody else that I know who understands dyslexia as a different input stage, step up and go and seek extra help. Help your parents to understand as well. Sometimes it could be, if we're reaching out to parents, that then the child is not dim and non-academic, it's just a different way of learning, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And my mother used to say that if she put my letters to her when I was at boarding school up to a mirror, she could sometimes read them.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, if I tried to write mirror writing, I couldn't do it.
But otherwise you could. That is just so superb. So a question that comes to my mind, a different input stage. Somebody gave you the chance and the time in the 70s when you were studying Cordon Bleu school. I take it you passed your exam?
I did, yes.
With flying colours? There's proof, nothing to do me. So from that moment onwards, you could prove that you were not dim and non-academic. So the beautiful part of that is that part of your story, Treena, is really powerful. And it leads into an inner empowerment where, from what I understand, is that you believed you could thereafter.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, it was that somebody having that belief in me that I could do something and that I was good at it. It didn't have to be just I could do it. I had to be good at it as well.
Wow. And you moved on to set up a business around this as well, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I had a very successful catering company for 20 years.
And in the catering company per se, what sort of undertakings did you have?
Oh, well, we would do births, christenings, marriages, and anniversaries, birthdays.
Full-on congregations. What sort of?
And we even went to did funerals as well.
Wow. And what sort of because we're thinking about a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Now, the principle, and we've got a little joke, haven't we? Where yourself, myself, and Gary, we've got a little joke where you're not a compliant C in any way. That means basically, no. That means basically for the viewers, if you've been following our journey over the last few years, I talk a lot about human psychometrics, which is when we understand the world in a particular way, 4 different ways: a dominant, influencer, a stability, and compliant. And a compliant individual, compliance as in conscientiousness, is somebody who sees the world through order, structure, plan, strategy, and steps, deep detail. Now, Treena was absolutely adamant that she was not a person who saw this way until I asked her a simple question. Now, when in these catering years, Treena, what would you like when things were put in the wrong place?
Oh, I hit the roof. I just hit the roof.
So what that means basically is everything had to be done to a set order. Now, once again, that is percepted with excellence and with being able to achieve. And then her gain proving to the world that she was the best in category. Yeah. You've also catered for some amazing celebrities.
Yes, I have. I suppose the highest person I've ever catered for was for Prince Charles. He was the guest at something I was doing, and that was interesting. Yeah, and I've done a lot of the judiciary as well, and a lot of actors and actresses. Victoria Wood, Jeffrey Archer, who's an author. Yes.
And my respect for Victoria Wood for changing how female comedians were seen, and her script writing and stuff. And obviously, she's no longer with us; she's in the light. God bless her. And Jeffrey Archer, so landed gentry individuals, but also people who are who have a background in politics, etc. as well. Now, a question to yourself, if I may. You've now took a complete shift, yeah. So we moved from those sort of catering environments of being at the top of your tree for 20 years. But at the same time, Treena, there's a side of you that I'd like to sort of like evolve for everybody to understand, is that you also understood spirit and understanding of what we call energy and healing.
Yes.
So you've studied in this arena as well. Yes. Please help us understand what sort of things that you've studied and how that's affected your world with animals as well as humans.
Right. I went to the College of Healing. I also have done counselling diploma. I've also done NLP. I've also done EFT, which is sometimes known as tapping. So I've done an awful lot of other things that I love learning.
Yeah.
I might not have been good at it at school, but I've made up for it afterwards. I still love learning now.
Yes. And I believe you've studied with our school as well. So the School of Synergist Method.
The Synergist Method, yes. And DFT and DISC. Yeah.
Well done. And so how has this evolved somewhat into what you do today? Because you're also known as the Phobia Lady.
Yes. It started off by somebody not really understanding what I did, because when I'm healing animals, and his wife was very fearful of dogs. And he said, could I help? And I went, yes, because I could, because of NLP, where it has hypnosis in it, but I actually don't work that way. I work with a type of tapping and color work, and also with NLP and language.
So some form of what we classify as neural tapping, yes?
Yes.
So you're keeping language and focus in with the tapping, which is the meridians, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's based on the meridians, which is where acupuncture works as well. So it's well known and it's well established that meridians do mean things.
Thank you. Now, a question arises that, for example, have you any stories of where people have actually had what they don't think are phobias? For example, there's a bit of a myth around phobias, because most people perceive phobias as being something quite weak and holding them back. For example, I personally suffer from vertigo, which is the fear of heights. I actually removed vertigo from my life and went up a mountain with a very close friend of both of ours, Marilyn Devonish, and she I reframed it with her because it's hard to do it for yourself, and I wanted her to reframe me, and I was a complete subject at the time, which is proof that it works. And I went up a mountain, and that was Kilimanjaro in 2013. So now on the other side of this is that I found that I kind of enjoyed having vertigo. Sounds a bit funny. So I reinstalled it. So I again suffer from vertigo. So majority of people have a phobia of something, arachnophobia, or claustrophobia for closed environments, arachnophobia for spiders. Can you just walk us through some of these type of phobias and how they could be a block for people in their life?
Well, one that springs to mind at the moment is somebody having a fear of pigeons. Fear of birds is quite common, but to actually put it down to one type of bird is more uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to me because he had been offered promotion, and he couldn't take the promotion because it meant he had to go to London on the train.
Wow.
And going on the train, he would have gone to one of the main train stations, and they're full of pigeons. And he would have had to do this several times a week. And he just thought, I can't do this. I really can't do this. And so he came to see me. He's taken the job. He took the promotion, and he's flying. Sorry about the pun there. I didn't mean that, but he's really doing very well at his job.
Brilliant. So just to clarify something. So is that a commonplace, Treena? Just so our listeners tonight can understand, is that a commonplace to be unaware of a phobia and kind of divert yourself around it, a bit like a stick in the river? You put a stick in the center of the river, and somehow the river seems to divert its energy around the object.
If you're avoiding doing something or going somewhere, and you will do anything to avoid it, you'll get somebody else to do it for you, or take you there, or whatever it is. You will maybe, some people have a fear of bridges, so they'll go miles out of their way to avoid going over, for instance, the Humber Bridge. And they know it's there, but they just ignore it and deal with it by doing other things. So what's fascinating about phobias is, you might know you have one phobia.
Mm-hmm.
You will not realize how much that is stopping you doing other things.
Wow.
It stops you being who you should be. It stops you living your life to the full. Because it's rather like an iceberg. You only see a little bit. It's what's buried beneath that you don't see. If you think of an iceberg as being very cold and stifling and freezing people, that's what's happening to inside you, is you're frozen and you can't break through the ice.
So
you live life to the full.
How does this actually, what does it do? You said it stifles people's living to the full.
Yeah.
How does it stop them, Treena? You know, if I knew or didn't know about it, does that make a difference? Whether I know about it or not make a difference?
You don't have to know that you have, maybe you don't like doing something, or you have a block about it. I mean, block is the modern word for phobia.
Wow. Repeat that again.
People don't use the word. It's a very old-fashioned word. People don't use the word phobia. Oh, I have a blockage about heights.
Wow,
I have a blockage of getting into planes. I just don't like them.
That's amazing. So now hang on a second. I can understand that now. So I have spoken to many people, not only on this show, but other than that as well in business, where they don't, I don't like that. But the like is a very firm, it's kind of like not in the center. It's kind of like right at the other end of the Richter scale, like a pendulum. And it's pendulum. It's kind of right up here in the no. No, I don't like flying. A very good friend of ours, his father, he's another one of my mentees, but his father absolutely does not like flying. And he's made every travel he's ever done has either been by road, water, or train, but he won't fly. But he hasn't got an understanding that he's got a phobia of flying. He just says, I don't like flying.
No, because he probably feels that he's a grown man and he shouldn't have this fear. It's ridiculous. it's not ridiculous to his subconscious. It's a
Mm.
real, tangible thing. And it's not being silly or unmanly. It's about how you are feeling about that particular thing, whatever that thing is.
So it kind of blocks the person from taking those actions, because
Absolutely.
he hasn't kind of gone very far if it's not connected to Europe, if you understand.
Yeah. And he's wasting so much of his holiday time traveling.
Mm.
Think of all that time he could have gained by flying there.
And on the same token, if I'm correct, it could be cheaper by just getting straight
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Yeah. So is this something, Treena? Now, you've worked with thousands of people,
Yes.
and you're known as the Phobia Lady. Is this something that can be translated within the arena of, let's say, if I picked up something out of the blue, success?
Yes.
So is
Very
there such oh, okay, please carry on. I was going to say, is there such a thing?
Very common phobia. Success and failure are very much like the same thing on the same coin, but just different sides of it. Sometimes it drives a person on to be successful if they're fear of failure, but fear of success, they actually won't do anything. They won't change. They won't make that step to go and have their own business or to be successful in whatever career they've taken on. They always self-sabotage themselves. They don't see it as self-sabotage, but that's what they're doing.
Wow. So if you've just joined us, this is the Empower Hour, episode 71, with Treena Maun, our guest this evening. And she is the Phobia Lady. And I'm telling you, you want to rewind back, just start from the start. If you're watching on YouTube right now, if you're listening to, if you just joined us, please rewind back and understand how an individual who has spent her time traveling around when she was a child, but actually learning a gift from her grandmother and realizing that she's got this beautiful way with animals and taking it to sky heights of 300 plus Crufts awards in best of breed, and how she's taken that forward in actually realizing that people may have a dog phobia, have phobias around these elements, and how she can actually help them get over these. And what's really stand out for me is the realization that a phobia itself is just an older word for a block. You know, when people say I've got a blockage around something, I need to repattern it, it's actually based on a phobia. That's just so wonderful. So if you've just joined us, please scrub back and understand the last bit. So welcome back. This is obviously episode 71 with Treena Maun. Treena, I just want to touch a little bit more about how people can see phobias as being something that's weakness, but on the same token, they don't realize that unconsciously, as you said, it can stop them from being successful in certain arenas. But in some cases, it will even stop them from taking a job, like you just said, where a gentleman, anonymously, obviously, felt he couldn't take a promotion or a new job because he had a fear of animals, in specific pigeons, and he knew that in London he had the visualization that on the platform he may have to go through Trafalgar Square and connect with them. And the fact that he worked with you over a period of sessions and actually repatterned and removed that phobia. So can I ask, in success, how could the phobia show up in the world?
You always seem to be having bad luck. You apply for jobs, you never get them. You do whatever you're trained to do, but you never get to the top of the tree. You always seem to have bad things happening to you, or it just seems you never get the promotions you should be getting, or you don't interview well. All these self-sabotaging things that can stop you being successful. You don't realize you're doing them. It's all unconsciously. And this is so powerful that, you can have this totally wiped away and you can then fly.
So just to remove that one little pin, like you could say a blockage, in essence, remove it and change that. So could you tell us a little bit about some form? I tell you what, Treena, I'm going to stretch you. I do apologize, but I don't really, because I inspire tribes here for the learning. If anybody here tonight is listening and you're having some kind of a challenge, if one of our audience members and listeners tonight is having a challenge around phobia, is there some kind of a generic mode or a model, the steps that they can take, which could assist them to kind of maybe at least identify and get over if they have any blockages or phobias at the time?
Yeah, you need to get pen and paper.
Okay.
And think about things that you don't like doing. And you get somebody else to do it for you, or you won't go somewhere and you're always taking a long way around to get there. Anything that you don't like doing, you will avoid doing.
So kind of like step one is to
write all these things down, and then to actually, you've got a list, say, of 7.
Yeah.
And the first one, you've got don't like spiders. Always ask the husband to remove them. Sorry, that's a bit sexist.
Yeah, but it's perfectly fair coming from yourself. Trust me. I purposefully have trained some of my children to be those. My eldest daughter is one of the spider removers. So,
and put a 10 being horrendous and 0 being it doesn't really worry you, and put a number beside it, and go through all of them, and then you need to say, okay, so
step one is to
spiders. Right, you're actually.
So just to clarify something for our audience, step one is to get a piece of paper and write down all the things that you might be avoiding or you don't like or you're fearful about on a piece of paper and just list them out. Yes?
That's it.
And step 2 is to then rank and rate them.
Yes, rank and rate
from 0 to 10 as in intensity. Yes?
Yeah. And then to think, I'm going to stay with the spiders. What's the worst thing that could happen?
So if we selected one thing of, let's say, arachnophobia, which is a fear of spiders, I was thinking probably dogs, if we could go with dogs.
Okay,
because I know a lot of my friends who have got a fear of dogs, and that's quite acceptable socially as well.
Yeah, for instance, you have a fear of dogs. You don't realize, you just know when you see a dog, you'll cross over the other side of the road, or you'll turn around and go back, find another way of getting where you are going to. So the number of that is, say, 9. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Okay, so it's kind of like step 3 is to visualize the worst thing that can happen. Yeah. So step 1 is to create a list of things you don't like. Step 2 is to create the intensity from 0 to 10. And step 3 is to kind of like understand what's the worst thing that can happen.
Okay, you could get bitten. Yeah, right. And what is the fear of being bitten? It's going to hurt. Your arm's going to get infected and drop off. I mean, in the worst case scenario.
Yes.
Or if you weren't in this country, could it be that you might be getting rabies?
Okay. Yes.
What is the end result of this fear?
Wow. Okay, yeah, that's taking me somewhere. I don't actually have a fear of dogs, but I could imagine that, Treena. I'm sure this is helping somebody. So what is the worst thing that can happen with that particular fear? And let's just follow the route of getting bitten, you're hurt, you'll bleed, you could get infected, and something could be amputated. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So anything like that really goes to extremes, that is a phobia. That is a block.
So something like that, you may not even socialize with friends, right?
Oh, yes. You might not go to friends' houses because they've got dogs.
Got it. So with going through these processes that you just shared, is kind of holding you back from, well, basically, it could make you aware of something that's not too aware. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And then by going through these 3 steps, or 4, with reference to what the worst thing is, what's the solution thereafter? Is there a 5th step?
No, it's to acknowledge. You've got this, and because you've acknowledged it, it might have already gone down to an 8 or a 7.
Oh wow, I just realized that. Yes, I understand. So by the time you've isolated and identified it, you're saying that one would actually have a lesser intensity.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And then what did you do after that?
Straight in the face. You looked it straight in the face and identified that it is there.
And then, so what could it do thereafter? Say if somebody's just done that now with us here, what could they do?
Go and see somebody that help them get rid of the phobia.
That somebody could be you, right?
It could be me, yes.
Yeah. So if somebody was to work with you there, Treena, and they had, let's say, for a dog phobia, because it's so common play. I mean, my children, I'll tell you, one of the key reasons we actually started to have dogs in our family, it was for myself, I always wanted kind of like a bit of a guard dog for the house and the family, but I also wanted the children to grow up around dogs and not be fearful of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could see that we made a conscious effort there. So something was there to make sure. I noticed my eldest daughter flinched once when she was trying to play with a puppy, and the puppy sort of growled. I think she was doing something that he didn't really like, I assume. And so that made the decision for myself to realize that needs to be resolved. So a great message there. Thank you. So now, if I was just to ask you a question today in your current practice right now as the Phobia Lady, you've shared a lovely story with reference to that gentleman who had a pigeon. I mean, is there anything else you can share? Any other kind of examples and experiences that you can share with us?
Well, one of the most unusual ones I think I have done was sharp knives.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And interestingly about that, it was on something like Zoom, but I couldn't see the person. I couldn't hear the person. And he could only write my answers to my questions, and he could only write short sentences because it's taking so long for the system to catch up with where we were.
Right.
And within 15 minutes, I'd got rid of his phobia. So I couldn't have seen his reaction. I've got no visual reactions to him.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear his voice, so I got none of his tonality or anything like that to cue me on to what to do with him. He just went through the steps that I teach.
So
it went.
That is just astounding. So you're telling me you don't need to know about the actual phobia?
And I also don't need to know about the actual phobia either, no.
So is it something that they could self-heal themselves? So what?
Yes, to a certain extent. I mean, as you said yourself, you have put in your phobia back in. Mm-hmm. So you have to make quite sure that it is gone for good. So that's why I do 3 sessions to really stamp the phobia out for good. So you will not reconnect to that phobia again.
Love it. So what kind of success stories have you had in this arena? Anybody you know that, well, of course you're not going to give us their names and maybe things, but what sort of things have been achieved on the back of using your Maun method with reference removal of energetic sort of phobias?
Right. I mean, a lot of people in this day and age have phobia of a phone. And I do workshops on that because on mobile phones, we actually don't use them for ringing people. We use them for taking photographs, texting people, playing games, finding something out on Google.
Yeah.
But we don't actually pick them up and ring people.
Do you know, Treena, I believe you've just hit a lovely bell there, because that makes a lot of sense. The other day, I was just reminding myself that I read a statistic from way back, 20, and this is from 2016, 4 years ago, when it said very clearly that an average human being with a mobile phone, not landline phones, so they're restricted, only uses 21% of the time they're on that phone on calling somebody. Now, realistically, that might have even reduced, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. So that could be quite of a problem, couldn't it?
Yeah. So I do workshops on this, and so people, when they're ringing, they ring the client rather than texting the client. It makes it much more personal than just emailing them or texting them. It means that you call them by their Christian name, and you get a rapport going much easier, so that the client thinks, "Oh, I really like this person. I'm going to buy from them again." Because they're really looking after me.
So that within itself could be quite a stumbling block for sales, couldn't it? Growth of the company.
Growth of the company, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I don't know about the audience, but this is enlightening for myself. I mean, this is such a brilliant context. Now, could you tell me a little bit about the theories that you work with as in the EFT or the tapping that you said?
Yes. So I use the back of the hand here to sort of wake the system going up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you here, you've got a little dent between your two little finger and your ring finger. You've got a little dent.
Okay, so like the marriage finger and
Yeah.
this knuckle, these two knuckles, yes.
And I tap on that.
Okay, here.
And we talk about the fear and what number it is, and then we talk about whereabouts it is in the body, and what color it is, what shape it is, and then I will ask an unusual question, and I will then ask you, what's the number now? And the fear will have gone down.
Just by working on these certain meridians.
Yes.
So what is a meridian? I mean, I don't understand for the audience. I mean, I've studied it as well, but for the audience, how would I understand that?
A meridian is very old. I mean, Confucius knew it. The Chinese have known it for about 5,000 years. Mm-hmm. It's lines in the body that are all connected. And these are sort of energy lines. So nerve endings going up and down and talking to each other. And for instance, like we've always said, oh, I have this feeling in my gut. And we now understand that our gut actually talks to our brain.
Okay.
Okay, so these lines are going all which way and every way. And by tapping on certain areas, you are connecting that little bit of knowledge that you have to another area.
So a bit like am I getting this right, just so I can understand? It's a bit like you could say the tapping meridians is very similar to acupuncture and
yes, very much like. I mean, acupuncture is one, I think, in your ear to help you lose weight. Why in the ear? But that's where it is, where the Chinese have worked out, because they were the ones that found out about it all those thousands of years ago. And with practice, they know, yes, it's one in the ear that helps people to lose weight. So
I don't know what you're talking about there, Treena.
There's a lot of science behind it now that actually can prove that it does actually work.
Amazing.
And then the other work that I do is visualizations. And by visualizing it, we're making it much more real, and we're making it a much more tangible thing that we can feel and touch. Whereas a fear in itself, you can't actually touch it or see it, or you feel it, but you can't touch it.
So I can see now what you're trying to say. So when you were tapping and you were talking, have I got this right? That's when you're tapping, coloring, and visualizing where it is in the body. We're kind of like making it much more tangible so we can see where it is, so that there's an opportunity to just kind of lift it out and change it type of thing.
Yeah.
Now, I co-wrote a product with Mats Udal, which is, God bless his soul at the moment. We kind of added a philosophy together called Neural Tapping System, NTS. And there, I think I shared some of it with Sharp before as well, is where you take the pain or the actual fear of whatever it is and the change out of your body. Are you doing something like that so you can actually
absolutely, yes. We
visualize it?
But I don't tell the client that because I want them to do it naturally.
And do you find that clients who have had business blockages due to, let's say, not being able to speak to people, feeling as though they're not deserved of the success, things of that sort of nature, and maybe have a lack of self-belief that they can, do you find that they have great results there after working?
Yes, people have great results. I mean, sometimes they have one small little business and it's ticking along, but it's not going anywhere great, but it's just moldering along, like going down a windy country road.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly they've got 6 businesses after they've
Wow. So once they've got that blockage through, they've removed that blockage. So if anybody out there is having a sort of challenge where they know they could be better or they could be more, that they should reach out with you. And if they did there, Treena, how could they get a hold of you?
From my mobile telephone number. I'd like them to say where they heard about me. And I will then if they give me their number on text, I will ring them back and we can have a phone
Would
call.
you be comfortable sharing your contact number?
Yes.
If anyone wants to speak to the Phobia Lady, so feel free. And do you have a website as well?
Yes, I have. It's treenamaun.com.
So Treena as in Treena, Maun as in MAUN.com.
Yes, .com. And I also have emails, treena@treenamaun.com.
Wonderful. And you said your mobile. Would you like to share it? You're perfectly welcome to.
It's 07554 667 005.
And how would they contact you? Would you be asking them to text you or call you, or just
text me to start off with, and then we can have a conversation on text, and then we'll have a meeting. I mean, I'll give you a phone call when we've a mutual convenient time for both of us.
Brilliant. Now, Treena, it has absolutely been wonderful having you on the show. It comes to a part within the show, a section where we go quite deep, actually, even deeper than your context. And there's beautiful 5 points or 4 points that you gave earlier on as well about how somebody can actually even identify whether they've got a relationship or a phobia with a relationship with a phobia that's stopping them from stepping forward. So thank you very much for those highlights. Going forward, we always ask some deep questions. I apologize, I haven't really primed you for this, but we call this the epitaph, the legacy. So Treena Maun has truly shared and changed the worlds of many in this world.
Can I just say something else first?
Sure, absolutely, Treena.
What I'd love, because it's the right time of year for doing this, or doing the end result of it, which is my memory jug. So every time something lovely happens to you, somebody sent you a bunch of flowers, or you've got lost and they've helped you to find where you're going. If anything, it'd be big things, little small things. Write them down, fold them up, put them in a jar. And on New Year's Day, turn the jar upside down, unwrap them all, and read them. It will make you feel absolutely marvelous for going forward into 2021, because this year has not been a good year.
Wow, that is just so beautiful. So you call this the memory jar? Is that right? Memory jar. So you're saying throughout the year, next year coming up, and even if you haven't done it prior, to think about it now and think about all the good things that have happened to you and write them down on a piece of paper and fold it up. So it could be something like, I was interviewed on my most favorite TV show, radio show, The Empower Hour with Sukhi, a person who I really respect. And thank you. And you grab that and you write it down. So if I've got this right, you fold it up. So it's not legible. Open up the jar, or basically get yourself a money box or something and pop it into there. And just keep filling it up. And then the idea is that at the end of 2021, or if you start looking back now and go month by month, that you should have a number of these, pop them away. And on New Year's Day, after the New Year's been through, open it up and read them. Yeah. Wow, that's such a powerful gratitude list, isn't it?
Absolutely, because there'll be things there that you will have totally and utterly forgotten. And they made you feel good at the time.
However little, however big.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how small, every single one.
That's just wonderful. Do you know, Treena, that is an infinitely powerful exercise to be doing for everybody. And thank you very much for sharing that and giving people that boost. It's your go. Now I'm going to ask you if I can say this is the epitaph moment. That was wonderful, by the way. And this is the epitaph moment. So by no means am I instilling this or igniting this at all, a complete stop on that. But just it's inevitable. We're all going to return into the light someday.
Yes.
But I ask all of my guests that what would they be remembered for in this world? So if I read a sentence, would you be okay to finish this or complete it in some way? Yeah. So it would be something like, here lies Treena Maun, the lady who. How would you end that, please, Treena? How would you like to be remembered? Legacy.
Allowed everyone she met to unlock themselves, to live their lives to the full, their full potential.
How beautiful. So if I repeat that, here lies Treena Maun, the lady who unlocked, did you say?
Unlocked people's unlock people's ability, unlock people's
Potential.
potential to live their life to the full.
How wonderful. So the lady who unlocked my potential to live my life at the fullest.
Yes.
That's just so beautiful. And what does that mean to you? And why would you want something like that so deep?
Because I see the way people change once they've come to see me, and they suddenly live life as they didn't realize life could be lived.
Completely different. How wonderful.
Completely differently. And they are so much happier, so much more contented with their lives.
How beautiful. That is such deep words of understanding. That also leads me to another question that we always pose, and we call it the wisdom point. So in this particular section, I want to ask you, or a question I would like to ask you, if you don't mind, if there's any kind of like inner wisdom quote that really, I know it's quite hard, but that really kind of gives you what we classify as a pick-me-up in the dark moments, something that really turns your life around and reminds you everything's so worthwhile.
Sometimes the heart sees what is invisible to the eye.
Aha. So okay. So sometimes the heart sees what's invisible to the eye. And what does that mean to you then, please, Treena?
Well, it means that sometimes we think we like somebody, and that's what our heart is saying, and well, our eye is maybe saying something different. So listen to your heart.
So that's what you're saying. So listen to the heart.
Listen to your heart. Listen to or another way of doing it is your intuition.
And how important is intuition to you?
Pardon?
How important is intuition to yourself? I mean, what is intuition?
Very, very important, yes. Because it's 99.9% right.
In most cases. It really is. Treena, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed yourself as well. And
Thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I'd like to say thank you as well on behalf of Salam Radio, which is our main sponsor, myself, Sukhi Wahiwala, your host, and the whole of the Inspired Tribe, of which you're a member as well, who we follow and learn and live to learn from each other. And we really, really am so humbled at such short notice and such the time close to Christmas that you're here with us today in 2020. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you once again. Thank you. And if everybody else, if you've just joined us, please scrub back to the start of this Power-Packed Empower Hour show. We've just been with Treena Maun, a lady who has cooked for royalty, who has today found a way of understanding phobia and a new way of understanding that phobia itself holds you back in life. And by removing phobias and being proud to be focused about phobia, that you can actually create change in your own world and live life to the fullest. So feel free to scrub back and listen to the amazing journey she's had, how she was influenced by her grandma and many other things that we'll go through, how blockages are sometimes mistaken as phobias are mistaken as blockages and blockages as mistaken for phobias. So thank you very much once again, all of the Inspired Tribe, and to Treena. We will be in next week, which is the 29th of December, every Tuesday between 7 and 8 o'clock in the evening, live on my YouTube channel for now, which is Sukhi Wahiwala Official. And next week, we'll be covering the depths of a powerful recharged process called the DFT goal setting, where we will actually be delving in with a 2-hour show with myself and 2 other guests, which is Gary Setterfield and also Am Goller, who will be bunching together and actually discussing in an open conversation over 2 hours about how to goal set and what it means to create a new mindset going forward from 2020 into 2021. Once again, thank you for being with us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.